years and years ago, before I really even started doing photo or video stuff, a photographer told me that he's getting really tired of photography. He feels like he's missing a lot of moments because he's futzing through a camera and he's viewed a lot of the most amazing moments of his life through the lens of one of his cameras. And he was just feeling really disconnected from the art form and a desire to connect more with the environment around him. To be honest with you, I think that that is something that a lot of us suffer from in the industry as years turn into decades of shooting. And now with about a decade or a little more of continuous photographic and videographic experience under my belt, I myself have run into some pretty intense creative ruts. But today I want to talk about how this lens, a free, to me anyway, lens, has completely reinvigorated me as a photographer and honestly has reminded me how awesome photography really is. So in this video, I want to tell you about how a free lens can change the game in your photography. Many years ago, my father gave me his old camera. This is a Pentax ME Super. A beautiful little camera, if you ask me, with the silver accents and everything on it. You know, when I got this camera, I had just kind of gotten into photography a little bit. I'd taken a few photos, and kind of everybody was starting to know me as someone who was into photography as more than just a casual hobby. And you know, through that process, I was actually gifted a lot of old camera equipment. This being just part of the collection I have developed over the years from people just flat out giving me their old camera gear. And as you can see, this one is, you know, still a little dusty, maybe in need of a little bit of a cleanup job. But mounted on this camera was this fun little tiny nifty 50, if you will, was just nestled in there sitting on the camera body itself. What a nifty little package this is. It's actually like kind of cool looking. Anyway, the camera itself is broken. I'm not sure what's wrong with it. It took its last picture probably in the 70s, if I'm being honest with you. And that brings me to an important point. There is nothing special about this lens. Like literally nothing at all. It doesn't have swirly bokeh. It isn't particularly sharp. It doesn't have a soft, super soft vibe to it either. This lens is just a really basic 50mm. It doesn't have autofocus, never did. There's no way you could spend enough money to put autofocus on it or retrofit an old camera. Like, this is a manual lens on a manual camera from the 70s. But when you pair this with a modern camera, this here is one of my most recent acquisitions. This is a Lumix S5 2X that I've got here. I've really been enjoying this camera as well. I think that it's an incredible tool for lots of reasons, but it's also not particularly special from a stills perspective. It has really good IBIS and, you know, a solid 24 megapixel sensor, but that's basically as far as the specialness goes with this camera. And normally you would find this camera with something like this on there. This is a 20 to 60mm kit lens, you know, one of these modern, you know, Lumix S-line lenses is what you'd anticipate to see on a camera like this. But when you take this camera and you combine it with this old lens, you get this really unique combo. As a matter of fact, you probably get an exact combination of lens and camera that is completely unique to me. In other words, no one else has this exact combination, this exact color, sharpness, focal length, aperture combination. Bokeh rendering, I mean, how niche do we want to get here? In other words, I'm probably the only person who will ever use this exact setup. So recently I took this combination and I took it on a backpacking trip with me to the South Colony Lakes. Actually, it was yesterday and the day before that I went on this backpacking trip. And you know, I had probably more fun with photography than I have in a really long time. And that's with this super old lens that is not particularly special, and this camera. And that's because for me, I think that what I appreciate the most about photography is its ability to help me see. You know, I want to loop back to what that photographer said at the beginning, that photography was getting in the way, that his camera was, you know, stopping him from, you know, really focusing on the moments that are happening around him. And for me, I feel like having a camera helps me see the world, especially when, you know, I'm just kind of taking pictures of whatever catches my eye and being able to create little memories. You know, something I think that's beautiful about photos is they can help you solidify memories, whether that's of your kids growing up, of a trip you took, or whatever it may be. It brings you back to that moment, even in your mind. You know, it's just capturing ones and zeros, or if you shoot film, you know, it's just kind of a mirror image of what was happening at that moment in that place. But your brain can remember the way it smelled, the way it felt. You know, if you work with the colors a little bit, you can kind of fit the vibe and like help yourself remember and return to that moment in time. And you know, that for me is what photography really offers me. That's what I'm passionate about with it. And I think it took me a long time to even know that that was what got me the most excited about photography, was that aspect of it. You know, I think I'm making this video because if you agree with the quote, if you're like, man, that quote kind of echoes with me, I think that it may be time to mix things up with your system, to maybe not take yourself so seriously and go out and have fun. Just get out of your comfort zone. Whether that's using an old manual lens like this, using a cheap all-in-one camera, or maybe even like a Leica Q2 or something, which is not cheap at all. Whether it's getting outside of the genre of photography you normally shoot, whether it's starting to shoot with flashes or choosing to shoot with natural light for the first time. Regardless of what it is, just get out of your comfort zone. You know, often I say, like, follow that little voice inside you that's like, I really want a super fast lens, or I really want to shoot macro shots of bugs. I mean, I don't know what your thing is. I don't know what you want to do, but just follow that and don't overthink it. You know, I think that we spend a lot of our time being like, well, I would take that photo, but I'm not going to because I have 24mm f4, so astrophotography is pointless to pursue. It's like, no, like maybe you're not going to take the best astrophoto ever, but that night that you're star watching will be so much more memorable, will be such a bigger part of your life moving forward if you capture some images of it. Because even if they don't matter to other people, they matter to you. And you know, I think that that's such a big part of photography. I get so discouraged when people start talking about photography in this really kind of negative sense. And I think it comes up pretty often because, like, to me, photography is one of the best ways to connect with other people, to connect with the environment you're in, to share perspective, to tell stories, and to remember stuff. It's like one of the most basic elements of photography is remembering moments in your life. And I find that a lot of the photographers around me aren't that great at photographing just the mundane moments in their life. You know, they're so hung up on photography as a job, they forget to have fun with it. And you know, I think that there's been a trend on YouTube a bit of those fixed lens point and shoot cameras. And I'm telling you guys, you can make yourself a lot of the experience of that by just throwing a vintage chunk of glass on the front of your camera. You know, you can get a lot of that sort of lower quality image that you might get out of film or shooting in these certain ways, or, you know, just by using a lens that isn't quite as tack sharp as the incredible glass we're using these days. I think that that's really what I want to share with you, is just get out there, shoot, and have fun. Don't forget that having fun is a big part of the photographic process. Well, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, hit subscribe. We've got a lot more content like this coming out in the future, and I will see you on the next adventure.